The school board meeting will begin in 2 minutes. Please take your seats. Again, the school board meeting will begin in 2 minutes. The school board meeting will begin in 1 minute. Please take your seats. Again, the school board meeting will begin in 1 minute.
Good evening. The February 28th, 2023 meeting of the Marion County School Board is now called to order at 5:30 p.m. Mirroring and modeling the way our students begin each day, I ask that we observe a moment of silence at this time. Please join me. Thank you. I now ask Vice Chair Thrower to read our board commitment statement.
With pleasure, Chair. We are the Marion County School District Leadership Team. When we come together to work, we are efficient, effective, and productive. Our three most important characteristics are dedicated, transparent, and individually responsible. To work well together, we must demonstrate respect, confront reality, and be accountable. We will always put students first, and we will leave a legacy of success.
Thank you, Vice Chair Thrower. For the courtesy of those listening to the meeting, I request everyone in the audience to please turn off their electronic devices or put them on silent. Later in the meeting, up to 30 minutes will be provided for individuals to address the board on matters concerning the operation of the Marion County school system or the school board only. Presentations to the board are limited to 5 minutes and are televised. If you wish to address the board regarding a regular agenda item or matters on which the board customarily takes action, you must first complete a peach-colored form located in the lobby. If you wish to address the board regarding a public hearing or a student discipline matter, please complete a lime green colored form. These forms must be fully completed and received by the board clerk no later than 5:40 p.m. The procedures applicable for each are on a separate sheet. Board Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Allison Campbell, District 1.
Here.
Mrs. Lori Conrad, District 2.
Here.
Mr. Eric Cummings, District 3.
Present.
Mrs. Nancy Thrower, District 4.
Here.
Dr. Sarah James, District 5.
Here.
Dr. Diane Gullett, Superintendent.
Here.
Mr. Jeremy Powers, School Board Attorney.
Here.
Thank you, Ms. Martinez-Lopez. Dr. Gullett, would you please introduce the members of your team who will be helping us with the inspiration and pledge this evening?
It would be my pleasure. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. Great to see you tonight. I have a great pleasure of introducing our very own Megan Magamal, who is the Executive Director for our Public Education Foundation. She is a very special guest here tonight, so I'll let her share and lead us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gullett, and thank you, board members, Board Chair Campbell, Vice Chair Thrower, school board members Conrad, Cummings, and James, and Attorney Powers and Ms. Martinez-Lopez. One of the signature programs of the Public Education Foundation since 1991 is our Golden Apple Teacher Recognition Program. The process begins in September each year with nominations coming from each school. Teachers then submit blind portfolios for committee review. They participate in interviews and classroom observations, all conducted by a volunteer committee. Thank you to Reverend Cummings, who serves on that volunteer committee, along with additional foundation board members and the prior year teacher and rookie of the year. The process, which is over the course of 4 months, will narrow down 5 Teachers of the Year and 1 Rookie of the Year. Those 6 teachers then become a part of the Golden Apple Academy. And the Academy is a cadre of outstanding educators who serve as positive leaders to network amongst each other and help lift up fellow educators in our district. In fact, we recently just created these Golden Apple Teacher Door Tags. So school board members, as you travel to your district schools, I encourage you to be on the lookout for the Golden Apple teachers on your campuses. Ms. Conrad, we brought one for you this evening so that you can proudly display that as well, if you would like. The grand finale to the Golden Apple process is our Golden Apple Gala, which was hosted February 4th at the Riley Arts Center. We had a historic year with over 600 in attendance, a great celebration and showing from our community members as well. During that gala, we announced the district's Teacher of the Year. And so I'm proud to have joining me this evening our 2023 Teacher of the Year, Miss Lindsay Bigelow from Ocala Springs Elementary. Our 2023 Rookie Teacher of the Year, Jennifer Bachmeyer, had wanted to join us as well. She teaches at Hammett Bowen Elementary and unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, could not be here this evening, but we will invite her back to address you all as well. So congratulations again to Lindsay, who will now continue on to the state level representing Marion County Public Schools. And thank you to school board members for your support of the Foundation's Golden Apple program. Now, Lindsay will address with some inspirational remarks.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Good? Okay. Good evening, board, Dr. Gullett, Ms. Martinez-Lopez, and Attorney Powers. I'm honored to be here as Marion County's Teacher of the Year. I'm still in shock. It was 3 weeks ago, almost a month, that this all happened, and it is still just a whirlwind of emotions. I've been honored to be serving on a few committees already just in the past few weeks, the safety committee, and I was just in my car on a professional development committee as the elementary representative. So it definitely has added a lot to my plate, but it's all joyous and exciting for me right now. As Teacher of the Year, my hope is to be an advocate for teachers. Teachers sometimes don't always go appreciated. It can be tough days. I mean, I have tough days too. I will stand up here and say they are not always perfect, but I think just reminding ourselves that we're there for the kids, that's ultimately our goal, right? We wouldn't be teachers without the kids in our classrooms, whether they're the little kids or the big kids. They all are there, and because of them, we're there. So I'm just truly honored for this experience. I submitted my things to the state level with the help of Megan, and I think that's really it. Again, thank you for having me this evening, and I look forward to the year ahead. And now for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah. Ms. Bigelow, can we come take a picture with you?
Sure. And I do also want to say thank you to the board for your support and the foundation. They do amazing things. I'm excited to volunteer in the Tools for Teaching store. As a little girl, I always kind of dreamed of being a cashier also. So I'm like living out my dream of being that. And I'm excited for that opportunity that I wouldn't have gotten.
Thank you to the Public Education Foundation for a wonderful program. We all enjoyed it so much. The Golden Apple Gala was one of the best ever, if not the best ever, and the Public Education Foundation Board was able to remember that event, and we listened to the song again, and everybody's doing a good job. I had that song on my mind all day, so thank you so much for that. And Ms. Bigelow, you're just amazing, and it's going to be a pleasure to watch you go through the process at the state level and potentially beyond as well. So congratulations to you again. Thank you so much. So we would now like to take the time to recognize donations sent from several gracious individuals and organizations. One Blood Inc. to Forest High School, Kiwanis Club of Ocala to Westport High School. And as the community may or may not be aware, the board used to have a part of our policy that we had to approve donations before they were able to actually get to the locations where they were intended to go. And now it is no longer policy that we have to approve them, but we do still want to acknowledge those in our community who are so generous. The total donation of these two gifts was $3,040. So thank you again for the generosity to our schools and our community. It's so valuable and imperative to the work that we're doing here in the district. With that, Dr. Gullett, I believe you might have a few words for us.
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the board, I am very pleased to introduce a new member of our team, Richard Benvenuti. Would you please stand? Mr. Benvenuti is coming to us from Miami-Dade, where well, let me tell you what he's doing first. So he is our new Director of Technology and Information Services, and he served in that role for 9 years in Miami-Dade Public Schools. He has adult children in town in Ocala and I think in Gainesville as well, but I can tell you about Mr. Benvenuti, how knowledgeable he is. A lot of great experience working with the district in technology. Immediately when I met him, I thought, he understands what our needs are in our schools, and a great sense of humor as well. So we are just so pleased to have Mr. Benvenuti's talent here in Marion County, and I'm sure that all of our school teams will enjoy getting to work closely with him as we help to accelerate our pace with technology support. So welcome.
Welcome, Mr. Benvenuti.
Welcome.
Welcome.
We're excited to have you. Certainly excited to have you, sir. Can't wait to get to know you, and this will be a wonderful challenge for you, yet we're up for the challenge. We are so excited to have you here. Thank you. Oh, yes.
That's okay. It's me tonight.
Oh, sorry.
I missed something else important, too. Mr. Benvenuti started his career as a teacher. 5th grade, I believe, correct? He was a teacher for many years, so he brings that in his role, which is so evident when you talk to him about making the connection. So wanted to make sure to point that out. We appreciate that he started his career as a teacher. Thank you.
Thank you. And Dr. Gullett, you're still up.
Yes, thank you. I recommend approval of the agenda for the February 28th, 2023 school board meeting with the materials in the board packet, those materials distributed to board members at the meeting, and the audio recording included as part of the official record of the meeting, with the exception of item D19.1 that has been placed under discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gullett. May I have a motion on the superintendent's recommendation?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Vice Chair Thrower, second by Reverend Cummings. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes 5-0. May I have a motion to approve the minutes for the January 4th, 2023 special administrative briefing and work session?
So move.
Motion by Reverend Cummings. Second by Ms. Conrad. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes 5-0. May I have a motion to approve the minutes for the January 5th, 2023 administrative briefing and work session?
The motion.
Motion by Dr. James.
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Thrower. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes 5-0. May I have a motion to approve the minutes for the January 10th, 2023 school board meeting?
So move.
Motion by Reverend Cummings. Second by Ms. Conrad. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes 5-0. I'll now ask the school board's attorney to explain the rules governing persons who wish to address the school board today. Good evening, Attorney Powers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In compliance with Section 286.0114 of Florida statutes, the school board has adopted uniform procedures for public speakers who wish to speak at tonight's meeting, either regarding one of today's agenda items or a matter relating directly to the operations of the school district. These procedures will ensure the public has a reasonable opportunity to be heard on school board and district matters. A written summary of these procedures is available from the table in the lobby. Public speaker forms are also located on the same table. The completed forms are due to the school board's clerk no later than 5:40 p.m. This evening, speakers will be called prior to the business portion of the school board's meeting in the order of receipt by the school board clerk. Before you begin speaking, please state your full name for the record, and please spell your last name. Each speaker will have 5 minutes of time. However, if there are more than 5 persons who wish to speak, the board may seek consensus to limit each speaker's time to 3 minutes. When the speaker has 1 minute remaining, the speaker will receive a visual notice to complete his or her comments. Speakers may not yield their time to other people. Speakers and meeting attendees are expected to conduct themselves in a respectful manner. Therefore, verbal attacks and profanity are strictly prohibited. Pursuant to the procedures for public comments, item 6, speakers are not to identify specific individuals other than themselves or their child unless a statement is provided 24 hours in advance. The board is here to listen to your comments only. You may be directed to an administrative staff member following the conclusion of your comments for further assistance to address your concerns. If there are matters dealing with student discipline, including expulsions, they'll be scheduled at the conclusion of the televised portion of this meeting. Parents may address the board regarding a discipline matter at that time. To ensure student privacy, only a parent or guardian may use the student's first or last name. Identifying references to or identification of other students and or their families are also strictly prohibited. A public speaker's speech does not reflect the endorsement, sponsorship, position, or expression of the school district. Thank you for the attention to the board's requirements. Chair, that concludes my explanatory remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Powers. Ms. Martinez-Lopez, do we have any speakers this evening?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have 2 speakers. John David Crawford.
John Crawford, C-R-A-W-F-O-R-D, 3999 Southwest 51st Court. Good evening, board members. On Friday, the Forest High School staff was informed that any reading materials that have not been pre-approved must be removed immediately from our classrooms. I recognize the board is tasked with making difficult decisions. I do not envy you. However, I believe that with this policy, the board's silent compliance in response to an unprecedented expansion of government overreach has damaged education in our children in Marion County. I do not speak for everyone at Forest, but I assure you there are many students and teachers who have privately confided their frustrations to me, but they are scared to go public. Indeed, it is terrifying to speak truth to power, but that's exactly what I intend to do. As a United States government teacher, I'm keenly aware of the foundational underpinnings of the First Amendment. I teach about the First Amendment and its necessity to the expansion of the marketplace of ideas and the distrust of government censorship. An essential aspect of America was forged in the distrust of a too powerful government, and our founders have warned of being leery of a concentration of power. However, the government is now censoring education simply because we have the audacity to have books in our classroom. This is clearly an attack on the character, respect, and trust that a community has in the teaching profession. Silent compliance with this state statute is a de facto endorsement of its underlying presumption that there are inappropriate materials in our classroom libraries. To be forced to catalog every material that I might use is to insinuate that there is something to hide. The United States is built upon the belief of innocence until proven guilty. However, the forced documentation and review of materials indicates a presumption of devious intentions with the simple act of owning books. This policy will force schools to stifle our students' educational curiosity and damage their access to legitimate literary materials. When students demonstrate an interest to delve deeper into curriculum, we'll be forced to turn them away because no book on that subject has been approved. Would we have to send them now to the internet? That's a far more dangerous option. I'd much rather they open a book about this that an educational teacher has deemed a benefit. This also undermines learning and what we're doing. How are we going to trust our citizens to be productive members of democracy if we don't trust them to read books? We are failing our children as they are the true victims of this policy. We need to encourage more reading, not less. Having taught for 20 years now, I can honestly say that this is the lowest point of my professional career. This is an unprecedented deviation from historical tradition in regard to state control over local affairs. For decades, there have been systems in place for parents to challenge the legitimacy of materials. A book can be challenged, and then due process would determine the merits of this accusation. The process has now been replaced with a presumption that all materials are unfit for students. I understand that the statutes are vague. However, the board has an undeniably difficult conundrum. This is why you have this job. This is why you are here to represent us. Not to take the easy way out, but to make the difficult decisions that benefit the children of Marion County. Proponents of this law will accuse educators and parents like myself as being hyperbolic in our opposition. The real fear that many educators see is that when a norm is established, it becomes much easier to restrict further. Today, the issue may be concerning the idea of exposing minors to pornography, but as the removal of books is normalized, the state can expand to the removal of ideas. The statutes are written with specific vagueness that allows expansion of the law at a contraction of rights. As the power of the state continually redefines a standard of acceptable behavior, independent thought and freedom from ideas becomes lost. But that's the danger of this subtle tyranny. Today you may believe in the content that a state approved, but what happens when you dare disagree with your government? Who will be left to speak for you? It has been said, it is the state which educates its citizens in civic virtue, gives them a consciousness of their mission, and welds them into unity. That was Benito Mussolini. I know that speaking out may carry consequences, but I ask you, who do you represent? Do you represent the 43,000 students of Marion County? Do you represent your 6,000 employees? Or do you acquiesce to the overreach of big government in Tallahassee? True courage is not the brutal force of vulgar heroes, but the firm resolve of virtue and reason. Please make the difficult decisions we elected you to do. Stand with our schools, stand with our educators, stand with our students, and denounce this policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Dr. Gullett, could Ms. Talbert Irving possibly meet with Mr. Crawford?
Mr. Crawford, I do have something I want to say.
Reverend Cummings, I think if Ms. Talbert Irving just...
I still have something I want to say, please. Mr. Crawford, thank you for coming. I appreciate that. But I just want to get some clarity, Madam Chair, because my understanding is that the books were quarantined for review.
Correct.
Am I correct?
Yes, sir. So quarantine would be removal, correct?
For review. So they haven't been taken out of schools as of yet, correct?
No, sir. They've been locked. They have to be removed from any access that students have.
But they have to be reviewed, correct?
Yes, sir. And my issue is not with the action necessarily, but it's the policy. And
I just wanted to make
yes, sir, absolutely. On the form, I
asked.
asked that the board would adopt a resolution condemning the law, not necessarily
I got you.
any action, but rather just to speak up.
I got you, but I wanted to make sure the public understood that there is a process and that these books have been quarantined
Yes, sir.
for review.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Talbert Irving potentially can explain a bit more of the process, as the board has been briefed on that this week and last week about what the process is. There is a process in place where books are under review, and the team has a pretty good plan in place on that. As far as, I'm not going to speak to having a resolution to go against the law, because we actually know that there is additional statute out right now, and the law could even be changing just in the matter of the next week, whenever March 7th, when session goes into place. So we know that there's additional statute potentially coming out in this legislative session, speaking to this topic as well, that we're not quite sure where they're going to land yet. So,
Madam Chair, also, I just want to make sure the public is complete, that we're transparent and the public is completely aware. It's not a policy, it's a law.
It's a law.
And Mr. Crawford said policy. I'm just, not to down you, but it's a law that we're dealing with right now. So.
Right. So this is coming directly
Mr.
from
Crawford.
the legislature. It is state law, what is being done right now. Each school district is working to implement the law. And so I understand the concern. I understand the request for a resolution to go against the law. I understand the request. And perhaps if there's any concern about the actual process that the district has in place, then I know Ms. Talbert Irving or Dr. Livengood could address that with you, Mr. Crawford. Thank you. Ms. Martinez-Lopez, additional speakers?
Carol Faber.
Thank you, board members. I want to start by expressing my apologies to the board.
Ma'am, can you start by saying your name?
I'm
and
sorry.
Spelling your last name. That's fine.
I'm
Thank you.
Carol Faulhaber, Faulhaber, 311 Southwest 91st Place. I want to start by extending my apologies to the board for any of my submitted comments that may have offended any of you. What was said at the work session last week, it did clarify some of the complexities of getting new schools built, and I guess I was very naive about that process, so please forgive me. I was looking at the numbers of enrollment at the different middle schools, and there's only 3 schools that are actually over capacity, which I think that's not so bad. So maybe I'm a little premature to be asking for new schools. Okay, I have 3 basic points that I'd like to clarify tonight. I'm pleased that it appears you are receptive to grandfathering in the 8th graders. So now the most negatively affected are going to be those 7th graders at Liberty. One of the board members said last week that a phased rezoning is not, in fact, rezoning. But if you grandfather in the 8th graders, aren't you essentially doing the same thing? Now, only 6th and 7th graders are being rezoned in that first year. My point is, if you can justify grandfathering in the 8th graders, it's only 70 more students that would be affected if you could also do that with the 7th graders. In other words, phase them in. In 2 years, the school would be totally rezoned. And also, how do you plan on handling the 6th and 7th grade siblings of these 8th graders that may be grandfathered? And I do have a question. Why are you not willing to consider a phasing in process as opposed to just sending the 300 kids back to Horizon? That's my main question. Number 2, the 2 schools located in the highest growth locations are Horizon and Liberty. So we're moving the students from one high growth location to another high growth location. I fear next year we're going to be right back here doing the same thing. Looking at the occupancy of all the middle schools, those on the edge of our district, Lake Weir, Dunellen, North Marion, and Howard, all have below maximum capacity. Bellevue and Liberty are over capacity. Liberty and Horizon are going to fill up rapidly over the next few years due to growth. Doesn't it make sense to move these students to the lower capacity schools where expected growth is minimal? There is minimal growth in Lake Weir, Denellen, and the Howard zones. Let's fill up these empty seats in these zones. This would simultaneously help to address the state's need to see more full seats. It would be no more disruptive to move the same number of students north, east, or west than the existing plan to move them all south. Is it possible that Horizon was selected over Howard due to the fear of more backlash moving some of these kids to Howard? And I hesitated to say that, but it just kind of came out. And number 3, my final comment regards giving parents an option to send their child to a school of their choice. Dealing with only 70 7th graders, if parents had a valid argument, why not allow them to go to another school? I met with a family living within walking distance of Howard Middle. They are facing a bus ride halfway across the county to Horizon. If they want to go to Howard, let them go to Howard. There are also several on the east side of I-75 that would be very happy to go to Bellevue Middle to avoid a 45-minute bus ride when they live 15 or 10 minutes away from Bellevue Middle. Bellevue is over capacity, so you would have to move a slice of their zone east to Lake Weir. Now the handful moving from Bellevue are happy, so you basically still have the same number of students that may be disrupted. I would guess that not all of the 70 students would request a change, so I believe it would be worthwhile to provide a route for these parents to request an alternate school. Based on all of these issues and those brought up by other parents, it really seems like a responsible thing to do would be to postpone this vote for a few weeks and consider all of these various issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fallhaber. I appreciate your comments. We will be having our public hearing in just a moment. Thank you. Ms. Martinez-Lopez, are there any additional speakers?
We have 4 additional speakers, but they'll be off air at the end of our meeting.
Okay, thank you so much. On to item C7.1. May I have a motion to adopt localized rezoning of schools in Southwest Marion County? May I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Dr. James.
Second.
Second by Ms. Conrad. Dr. Gullett.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. The adoption of the localized rezoning of schools in Southwest Marion County will best serve students' educational needs and align the number of students with facility capacity.
I declare a public hearing. Is there anyone present who wishes to address localized rezoning of schools in Southwest Marion County? And our most recent public speaker had a lot to say about it, so we'll take that under advisement. Board, is there additional discussion about this item?
I have a couple things.
Okay. Vice Chair?
Thank you, Chair. Especially appreciate anytime a citizen comes forward to share concerns with us. We are very tuned in to the community and elicit community opinion and input on a wide variety of topics, and I'm really grateful for that. While anyone may feel like they weren't heard if they end up being disappointed, I want to share that in situations like this, there's never going to be 100% approval. And we had extensive conversation in our work session. A lot of the concerns that were brought forward, similar to the ones that were shared this evening by the speaker, were addressed. And that this is step one. We're also going to be considering an interlocal agreement updated for the first time since 2011. So I'm confident that we are going to be moving forward in the right direction, and I appreciate Dr. Gullett's leadership on this issue. Rezoning is not something that comes often in Marion County. There's a lot of other counties that have a lot more experience, so personally I was grateful to our superintendent for having the experience of dealing with this in other places. And so I'm feeling like I'm going to support this, knowing that it's not the end all, it's not the be all, it's the beginning.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any additional comments? Dr. James.
I support the sentiments that Board Member Thrower just shared. I think that this board is committed to making decisions that are tough, but are going to ultimately do what's best for our community. I did want to draw awareness or question to the transportation piece that we had left on the table. Is that something we are discussing now?
This would be the appropriate time, yes.
Because that is a part of the decision we need to make as to whether we are going to provide transportation for students who are grandfathered in. Mr. Ayers had sent us those numbers earlier today, and it looked to me as though the majority of the students who would be grandfathered in that senior class for the schools do currently receive transportation. I was that board member, and I maintain that I believe if we vary from the plan as presented by Mr. Ayers, who I will call the expert in this in Marion County, we will begin to avoid the purpose of the plan, which is to rezone and to move kids from one place to another to alleviate the pressure that's currently existing at the school sites. So school choice is always an option for most of the schools in Marion County. I can't recall off the top of my head if Howard has controlled open enrollment or not. It does. So in the controlled open enrollment period, which will be in April, I get another head nod, to our public comments point, an individual who is going to be rezoned but lives within walking distance of Howard could choose controlled open enrollment for Howard and attend Howard Middle School next school year. That is an available option that we afford schools that have space. I believe that Mr. Ayers and the department under Dr. Gullett's leadership have provided a lot of creative ways for students to attend schools that they are not zoned for. My own children participate in school choice. So I do believe that the plan that as was presented is the plan we need to move forward with. I do not think that we need to provide direct transportation for that senior class of students. I am always going to be an advocate for hub stops or a creative solution to transportation, getting a child to a stop that currently exists that isn't a hub stop. But I don't think that we need to load our transportation department that is already striving so hard to make improvements with more routes. I don't think that that would be the best for all of our Marion County students. So I would move as a board member that we grandfather that senior class without transportation. That would be my point. Thank you.
Additional comments, board?
Yes.
Reverend Cummings.
In looking at, and I concur, we have to move forward, but I move forward a little bit differently because of the number of kids that are affected by transportation. I do think we need to figure out that transportation piece to all of a sudden tell 71 kids that they have to, that 71 parents, that now they have to transport these kids when they have been riding the bus, which is public education, which is part of them receiving public education, could be an extreme hardship. That's 71 kids at Liberty Middle School, and then that's 18 of the 21 kids that's going to be affected at Sunrise. We want this redistricting to be effective. How good is it going to be effective if we do this and these kids aren't getting to school on time? If they're not getting to school on time, or if they're being late, that hurts instruction hours and instruction minutes. So I'm looking at the transportation piece with this.
Vice Chair.
Thank you. I looked at that as well, and I thought, oh gosh, you know, I wish that it was fewer students that were availing themselves of transportation. However, as a parent and a working parent, you know, our kids, not a one of them went to their zone school because of school choice, and it is not even March, and we're talking about this starting in August, which does leave a lot of time for planning. And so I think there is a middle ground here. There are stops that are closest to your home that go to that school. That's what we availed ourselves of, and it made a big difference only having to drive part of the way rather than all the way over. The example I'm using is Westport High School when we lived over by the old Kmart. So that was super helpful. So transportation definitely can have a role in supporting this, you know, through closest stops, if there's room on the bus. But we know the challenges that transportation has experienced both in this district and across the country. So I think we need to be careful of overburdening them because either way, the kids are going to be late. So I think that with ample notice, good planning, carpooling options, closest stop availability, hub stops when available. You know, we sit here and talk about thinking outside the box. Well, we all have to do that as a community because that means we're acknowledging our challenges. Transportation is one of them. You know, most parents are not going to be happy taking their kids from south of the county up to North Marion Middle because there's room there, unless they're really into the Cambridge project, you know, or they have time to do that. It's a unique situation for each parent. I just think we need to really be realistic here and have confidence in our parents that given enough advance notice and the support of transportation that we can assist with, that we'll be able to overcome that barrier.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
Chair.
Dr. James.
And just respectfully, Reverend Cummings, we are going to provide transportation to the school that they will then be zoned for. So it is not as if we are not providing transportation. What we are not providing transportation for is that if that senior class chooses and intends to remain at the school they currently attend.
Okay.
So I wanted to clarify that because I felt like there was a miscommunication there. Transportation is going to be provided always to public education students who live outside of a 2-mile radius to their zone school. These students will be rezoned and will get transportation to their new school that they are zoned for. If they choose to intend to remain at their current school, if that's the way the board moves forward, their parent would have to provide transportation because it would then essentially be a school choice, which we do not provide transportation for.
Or avail themselves of other options. I'm sorry.
Exactly, correct.
Within transportation.
So I wanted to clarify that. We do always provide transportation for zone schools outside of the 2-mile radius.
That's not how I was reading the email that I was reading. It just says transportation information regarding their potential grandfather students, and it doesn't say that. So it doesn't clearly state that.
I thought we weren't aligned on that, so that's why I felt important to clarify that. So we will provide transportation, and Mr. Ayers, you can give me a head nod, to their new zoned school.
Okay.
If they intend to remain, that is what's on the table.
Okay, I'm good.
Additional comments? So for clarification, there will be affected students at both Liberty Middle and Sunrise Elementary that will have the option to remain. So the rising 8th graders, there are 73 of those students at Liberty Middle that will have the option to remain in that school. The 21 rising 5th graders at Sunrise Elementary will have the option to remain at Sunrise Elementary. All other students in the affected zone will be moved to the zoning maps as indicated, and Mr. Ayers is walking to the podium. So maybe you can give us the full clarification so that as we make this vote that I haven't misspoken. Welcome, Mr. Ayers. We appreciate you.
And I appreciate you. Yes. Welcome, Madam Chair, Madam Co-Chair, board members, Dr. Gullett, Attorney Powers, Ms. Martinez-Lopez. Yes, as we discussed last Thursday, what you would vote on are 3 things, basically. Adopting the plan as presented, grandfathering in the senior classes, we're going to call it, without transportation, but knowing that parents can avail themselves to courtesy rides, different things like that. And remember the third caveat, to suspend school choice for these schools that are affected, because we did rezoning for overcrowding to give time for the new development to take place.
Right. Okay, thank you for clarifying for us, Mr. Ayers. Vice Chair Thrower.
Thank you. Mr. Ayers, how many years will the school choice be affected?
Where the standard process that other counties do is 2 years. That would give plenty of time for the new development to come in, and if it doesn't fill up within 2 years, then it's opened up again.
Thanks. I appreciate the clarification, just because that was something that our speaker mentioned, and I knew we had covered that base, but I just wanted to make sure it was heard again publicly. There's a lot to this.
Yes, ma'am.
So for clarity, Mr. Ayers, the schools that will not have school choice, for the record, what are they?
Would be Liberty Middle, Horizon Academy, Sunrise Elementary School, and Marion Oaks Elementary School.
Thank you. Dr. James.
And another thing the speaker brought up that I want to ensure that we are clear about, siblings who are sibling to a senior class will be rezoned. There will be no intent to remain for a sibling.
Right.
So if the parent chooses to remain at Liberty or Sunrise, the sibling who is younger will be rezoned either way.
That is correct.
Okay. Board, any additional commentary? We have a motion and a second on the table. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Ayers. May I have a motion to approve consent agenda items C9.1 through C18.1 with the exception of item D18.1 that's been placed under discussion? May I have a motion?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Vice Chair Thrower.
Second.
Second by Reverend Cummings. All in favor say aye.
Chair, just for clarification, it's actually, the item is D19.1 that's been placed under discussion.
Did I say C18?
That's what is there. But
It's 19.1? Okay, I'm sorry. For clarification, we have a motion and a second, but the item that has been placed under discussion is D19.1. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes 5-0. May I have a motion to approve the Marion County Third Amended and Restated Interlocal Agreement for the Public School Facility Planning? May I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
I'm going to give Vice Chair Thrower this motion, and I will say second to Dr. James. Attorney Powers, would you like to give us some information on this discussion item, please?
I will indeed. After quite a bit of work, we have achieved a third amended interlocal agreement. The second amended interlocal agreement was adopted in 2008. Statutes have changed, situations have changed, funding sources have changed, nearly everything has changed since that time. And during that period of time, there's been a definite need for some improvements in school funding structures and in communication between the municipalities and the school board. We have currently a couple of studies that we're undergoing right now in order to determine exactly what capital outlay funding sources we should best utilize. And that will be something that will come as a sort of second half to the agreement that's on your agenda tonight. For tonight, this third amended interlocal agreement would retain the commitment and clarify the commitment of all of the municipalities to continue to meet, organize, and discuss on a regular and spelled out clear basis the process by which we discuss potential planning for public school capital outlay. Within that, there's a definite need for and a continuing and ongoing need for planning and informational sharing. And it's taken quite a bit of doing for us to consider all factors in that. The working group, which is the Interlocal Agreement Working Group, has met on a number of occasions in publicly noticed meetings in order to best determine how it is that we should set up our planning process and procedures in order to ensure that the next step will be successful. And so the item that's on your agenda tonight is an iteration of exactly that. It shows what and how we're going to communicate together, and it takes into account all of the concerns and all of the desires at this point of the municipalities as well as the school board going forward. We will revisit this over the summer, most likely, with return of our data studies in order to get some content in there into the skeletal infrastructure that we've built, which I believe is a sound one. Ms. Thrower has been a representative on that working group committee. I have worked closely with Ms. Thrower, with Ms. Debick and Mr. Hurley. Mr. Hurley's our planner here, and we've hashed out languages and sentences down to the last word. And,
down to the last shall.
Down to the last shall. So I would, after having reviewed this, I can indicate that that as your attorney, this has my seal of approval for you to move forward, and would then respectfully ask that if you have any questions or concerns regarding anything within this agreement, which was publicly noticed and you've been provided with, please feel free to discuss now, and we will be happy to answer any questions that I can. And if not, I've got backup in the audience who can help me.
Thank you. Any additional discussion, board? Vice Chair Thrower, you have any comments on this one?
Just that I'm thrilled to be at this point. I'm so grateful to Mr. Hurley and Lauren Debick and everyone from all of our elected officials and staff that came together to get this done. It's the approval of this will be a huge step forward to a new way forward, and I'm really looking forward to what's to come. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's no additional discussion, we have a proper motion and second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. The next administrative briefing and work session has been scheduled for March 9th, 2023 at 9 a.m. The purpose of the work session is to discuss the Code of Student Conduct Revision 1 of 2, Code of Civility, and the mid-year review of the current year 2022-2023 budget. The following administrative briefing and work session has been scheduled for March 23rd, 2023 at 9 a.m. The purpose of the work session is to discuss External Auditor's Report, the Code of Student Conduct Revision 2 of 2, Student Progression Plan 1 of 2, Alternative Placements, and Annual Reports by Charter Schools. At this time, I will go to committee reports and board member comments. And we will start with Ms. Martinez-Lopez. Do you have anything from the board clerk's office?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Attorney Powers.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I have actually 3 items to discuss tonight briefly. First, just a reminder that on the March 9th work session, we do have attorney-client sessions that are beginning at 9 a.m. And it's difficult always to anticipate exactly how long those will take, but our work session meeting will begin upon the end of those meetings. As a rough estimate, I would expect that it would take less than 2 hours, possibly much less, but that's depends upon what happens there. And those have been previously announced as to the case numbers, so I'll rely on that. Secondly, there has been some discussion and consideration of having a student representative on the board as a non-voting member to observe and to have input. And I researched a little bit about policy and how that could play into it. Neola does have a standard policy that they've used. Martin County has adopted it, and of course we can cut and paste to our own liking if we wanted to have a student representative named to the board. The biggest thing that we would need to look into is as to the selection and appointment of such a student representative, and the board would need to discuss that at some future time. That would, of course, need to be a joint effort between operations and the board in order to determine how that student would be appointed. But we do have template bylaws to make that happen, and if we were interested in doing it on a trial basis, we could also have a temporary resolution to achieve that for at least a 90-day period until we were able to insert it as a bylaw with our next Neola updates. That then leads me into my third and final item, that is Neola updates. As you recall, some of you definitely will recall it because it was a long process. We recently completed, after our July of last year adoption of their policies finally, we also then promptly underwent 172 updates that have been waiting for us while we were debating exactly what policies were going on and what we needed to put in there. At that time, I regret to inform the board that I told you after this, it should be much easier because policy updates trickle in and we'll do those on an annual or biannual basis as needed. I did not anticipate that our federal and state legislatures were going to be quite so prolific in the laws that were established. And Neola has been burning the midnight oil, so to speak, in trying to cross-reference policies that are affected and make sure that they present to us the areas that they would recommend potential updates that would make us continue to be compliant with laws that are in the works or will be passed or have recently been passed. I expect, by the way, another round of updates prior to January of next year. However, in the immediate interim, we have 70 updates to policies that 70. And most of them are relatively minor and relatively routine. However, there are a few that are high content area. And of course, the high content area, even a few of those can absorb more time than the other, say, 60. And what I have done is prepared for us to have a public hearing, for us to announce a public hearing officially on March 28th because of the rulemaking and development structure. On the March 28th, we will officially announce a public hearing. However, that will just be to set the public hearing because the public hearing will then be set for adoption at April 25th. And at that point, neither of those items necessarily requires much discussion at all. It's simply the consensus which was previously approved would be voted in and an opportunity for any additional public input. And I will remind you that throughout several of our policy sessions, public input has been invited on each of these items well prior to now, but this will be the final public hearing. And then that would mean that those 172 policies we worked hard on over the last several months will be officially adopted then in April 25th. At that point then, we will immediately thereafter, after we have our draft folder cleared out, Neola can put in our those 70, and myself and my staff will then move those in, make any red line changes, ask for staff input where appropriate, as we have done with the last update, and then submit those to the board, I would anticipate by this summer, June or July. And we'll begin that process again, and I'll be able to tell you more at that time of how much content this involves, because obviously Neola, as well as our concern, is to make sure that any items which the law has perhaps not been settled on, because there are debates going on right now as to what is going to be included in those updates and not, that those will be as settled as possible before the board goes adopting any policy, which it's just going to have to rescind later. So for efficiency, by summer, we should then have the remainder of those updates, and we already know that by January of next year, there are going to be a few more. Hopefully, the number gets less and less each time. I didn't anticipate the 172, but that took a lot of effort. Now we're down to the 70, and we'll see. We'll hope for maybe 35 next time. So that is the last and final item that I have to introduce to the board, and board members can contact me individually, or if you have any questions, I can answer those now as well.
Thank you, Attorney Powers. Let's not ask any questions of you right now because we're excited that in April we will have the opportunity to approve the policies that we have already worked so diligently on, and we will be looking forward to having those additional work sessions to talk about more policy updates. Thank you, Attorney Powers. Dr. Gullett.
Good evening again, Madam Chair, members of the board. Just briefly, it's Public Schools Week, and we are in very, very unique times and have a lot of challenges, but I am incredibly optimistic that we will continue to reach all students. I'm a product of public school education, my children were, and proud of it. And I think that we do great work for our students and for our community and our families. And so just want to thank everyone who works so hard in all of our schools and departments to prepare the way for a bright future for all of our children and for choices that they have for their future. So very proud of that and wanted to mention that to the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gullett. Dr. James.
Good evening, Marion County community. As always, there is just so much to reflect on since our last board meeting. I will highlight just a few of the events that made me smile and brought me joy. I enjoyed the North Marion High School Career Day recently, where every single classroom had at least one guest speaker. My husband, an entrepreneur himself, was a presenter along with many other business owners and individuals who work in a variety of fields throughout our community. Ms. Sales, principal at North Marion High School, even had leaders from our district's IT, Transportation, and Facilities Department to speak about their fields and the opportunities for careers the students could land right here in Marion County with MCPS. I thought this was such a great idea. This past Friday, I also enjoyed a wonderful plaque dedication ceremony at Fesden Elementary School. I sat in awe at the community in the room. The stories told about the history of the school and past students and educators was incredibly impactful. There was a woman in the room who was 96 years young. The community on the north end is strong, and I am proud to call District 5 my home. Tonight we heard remarks regarding items of heightened focus and concern, including rezoning in our southwest area with localized overcrowding, as well as classroom libraries. When I took office, I knew that I was going to be a board member who faced a variety of hot topic items. I'm always committed to making difficult decisions and having difficult conversations. I'm not conventional in my approach, and I'm unapologetically me. I will do what is best for our kids always. I will close tonight with a quote from Dr. Seuss in honor of his birthday this week. Today you are you, that is truer than true. There is no one alive who is youer than you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. James. Reverend Cummings.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to be in here tonight. We heard earlier tonight from Mr. Crawford about this library thing with the books, and we have to understand. I hope the community understands that as a board we are bound by laws, and we want to follow the law as the law is given, and stay in compliance. Once we violate the law, then that sets the board up for discipline or consequences that this community don't want to have. So we will, I believe, and I'm speaking as one member, this board member believes that the board will be in compliance with laws until laws are changed, and definitely personal views on certain things, we speak out on them. However, we must be in compliance with the law so that our schools are law-abiding. The other thing, today is the 28th of February, last day of Black History Month. It's been a busy season for me, and going around, I do want to give a shout out to Miss April Rose, who's at Forest High School. They had a tremendous Black History celebration a couple of weeks ago. And then I also want to give a shout out to the College Park School for their DARE program graduation yesterday. Truly a great event. Those kids were excited, and to be able to see this DARE program that's going forward, I gave them some additional dares. Matter of fact, I gave them a couple double dog dares because they need to make sure that they're doing the things that they're supposed to do to not only not be involved in drugs and violence, but I double dog dared them to make good grades, to make good choices, to clean up their rooms. So doing those things that's going to help make them well-rounded people. So again, I thank our SRO over there, SRO Malaya Woods, for the invitation. On Friday night, we celebrate Howard Academy. Mr. Vita Randolph, our director over there for the Black History Museum and Archives. We had our gala for the Black History Museum and Archives, and we did an induction. Truly a beautiful program. Ms. Randolph took it to a new level, and we were grateful for all those that participated, that were there, that could not be there but supported it. And just want to honor two of our inductees that are members of this, that currently work for Marion County Public Schools, and that being Ms. Teresa Boston Ellis, our CFO, and our Executive HR Director, Ms. Wantanisha Morant. They both were inducted in. But I think, and I'm so proud of both of them for all that they're doing, but in the midst of also the inductees, there were so many other inductees that night that were not current employees of the district, but had strong ties to the district. One being Ms. Rose Thomas, who was a long-time employee of Marion County Public Schools, who was a PE teacher, Osceola, who worked her way up to becoming a dean at, and finished her career as a dean at Dunellen Middle School. And then also we all know about the legendary my frat brother, Mr. Clyde Niesman, who was Northside Pride himself. So, so even though there were others in the community that were recognized, Marion County Public Schools has a huge presence in that museum and archive. So I want to say congratulations to all of the inductees again, and that a couple of weeks we're going to be having spring break. I'm looking forward to spring break already. So I just want to encourage our kids to please be safe as they go on spring break. Please be responsible. I double dog dare you to do the right thing while they're on spring break. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Reverend Cummings. Ms. Conrad.
Okay, my board members have covered a lot of the same topics that I have in my my closing statements, but I'll just draw attention to a few things. I'm grateful that Lindsay Bigelow, our Teacher of the Year, was able to be here tonight. She continues to inspire and help lead us. I'm really excited that she's helping on our safety committee, but also in the area of professional development for our teachers. I think that's a win-win for all of us. Mr. Crawford was here earlier, and that was a struggle for me personally when I met with the committee to talk about the law that we're trying to accommodate and make a plan for here in Marion County. I just want to share for the teachers that are in the classroom right now, I know how hard this is. I can put myself in your shoes, and I know that it's a huge challenge, and just know that we are trying to support you in the best way possible, and to reach out to us, reach out to me, if there's anything we can help make the process easier. Because what Mr. Crawford shared today is true, and I know that some of our staff are treading water, and this is a thing that's causing a lot of added stress to our teachers and to our media specialists and to our administrators. So I just want you to know that I am thinking about it. It is in my heart, and I know that it's something difficult that you're having to face right now. I also wanted to bring attention that voluntary pre-kindergarten enrollment is open. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of that, and it goes to the end of March. A concern I had from the discipline report that I'm thankful that we get, the numbers are just so high. And so kind of following off what Reverend Cummings said, I double dog dare you to do your best. We have a new document that was sent out today, I think at the request of Dr. James, if I read that correctly. And I just want to encourage looks something like this. It's blue. And it's just highlights some of the behavior and discipline issues that are happening frequently, especially in our middle schools and high schools. It was shocking to see that some of it goes all the way down to second grade. But I just encourage parents and families and teachers to take a minute and go over these as we move into the spring season. And kids get spring fever a little ahead of time. We have a lot to accomplish still as we go into the testing season. So I hope that everybody takes advantage of this document and goes over it in their classroom and at the kitchen table at home too, so we can get through the end of the school year and hopefully lower some of these numbers that we're seeing monthly. I also, too, was excited to be a part of the Black History event for Howard Middle School. And I think also, Reverend Cummings, it was just great. Teresa Boston-Ellis, Mrs. Morant were recognized, and we are very grateful that you are a part of our team for Marion County Public Schools and that you represent us so well. I also wanted to mention Cut Different, because they're not here this evening. I don't see Jamie out there, but they are making an impact as young men in our schools each and every week. And so I'm thankful also for the work that they're doing. And with that being said, looking forward to a great week. Glad to see you all here today, and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Conrad. Vice Chair Thrower.
Thank you. And yes, I continue to see the cup as half full. Definitely not half empty. I am a public educated person, all of my family. I believe in it very strongly. We certainly have our challenges, but when I look around at our community, and sadly I wasn't in the best of health this past week and had to miss Friday night's festivities, but I see the caring, I see the expertise, I see the passion, I see the commitment, and that really is what helps keep me going. And just piggybacking on board member James, it is Dr. Seuss week. I love Dr. Seuss. And if someone like you doesn't care a whole awful lot, nothing's going to get better. It's not. That's all I have.
That's good. Well, there you go. That's all you have? Wow, I have a long list. No, thank you so much, board. I appreciate all of your comments and all of the hard work that each one of us puts in. Do want to remind you that tomorrow is our master board training beginning at 9 a.m. in the superintendent's conference room. Thank you, Attorney Powers, for mentioning the student member representative to the board, because that is something we talked about some time ago. I would like to see us schedule a work session possibly early in April. It may need to be an extra work session, because as I start reading all of the things that we have in March coming up, there's so many topics. And so I know that we potentially will have additional conversation about superintendent evaluation procedures, those kinds of things. So there may be a couple of items. We may need to have an extra work session coming up in April, and I think that would be a great time for us to discuss a student member representative to the board as well. I personally, this board member thinks that it could be an application process, and if we got on that fast enough that we could roll it out in end of April, May timeframe, and potentially have a student representative chosen by next school year in August, so we could have, if in fact that's the direction we want to go. So I welcome that opportunity. Also wanted to say a big thank you to the Public Education Foundation for their presentation this evening, and obviously we've already said so much about the Golden Apple Gala, but they really do amazing work, and honoring the teachers is significant, and so we're so grateful for all they do. I'm also grateful to be back serving on their board after a 5-year hiatus. Their board meeting was this morning, and it was great actually to sit by Miss Bigelow, because that was her first meeting and my first meeting back, and their great work just continues. So looking forward to share monthly reports with you all as we have them to present. As has already been stated, congratulations again to all of the inductees into the Black History Museum archives this weekend. Special appreciation to Miss Davita Randolph at Howard Academy. She organized a spectacular event, and honestly, she has set the bar so high. She has a lot that she's going to have to do to she'll just have to get to that same bar again over and over, because I mean it was amazing event. Also, congratulations to the alumni of Fessenden Academy, as Dr. James stated earlier, for their celebration this weekend. A few of us were privileged to learn a lot more about Fessenden while we attended their event. Their guest speaker in town was really fascinating, all of the knowledge and history that he's done on that, as well as hearing from the alumni. That was a really great event, and I'm grateful I had the opportunity to attend. Speaking of events, I had been with at least one board member for 5 working days in a row, so admittedly I kind of missed you guys yesterday. And it was every day last week I was with board members, so yesterday it was like, wait, I don't have any board, but here we are today, and we'll be together tomorrow, and then so we're back at it again. I did see on a billboard today that this evening at 6:30, actually probably going on right now, is the steer auction at the Southeastern Youth Fair. So I forgot my boots. I was planning to put them on and run over there, and it may be a little bit delayed, but I am intending to head over there because I'm interested in seeing how that steer auction goes. I'm also looking forward to reading at South Ocala Elementary this week. That's going to be a lot of fun. The legislative session in Tallahassee begins a week from today. As was already stated, there has been a lot of legislation that has come down in recent years that significantly impacts education. As one of our legislators told us, he believes that this will be the most impactful year in Florida history for education and legislation that's coming. I think he used the word transformational. I don't know what that means entirely, but I do want to share with the board that we all received an email today from Dr. Danielle Thomas from Florida School Board Association about the specific bills to watch and what the nuances and the changes and all that will be about the bills. So check your emails, and obviously she'll be sending out regular updates as we proceed through that. So, board, as I wrap up my comments this evening, I actually wanted to come back to the heart of why I'm serving on this board. This weekend at the church where my family and I attend, the youth pastor gave the Sunday sermon. At the conclusion of the service, when he was offering up prayers of benediction and conclusion, he prayed specifically for the Marion County School Board. He prayed for the board down to principals, assistant principals, guidance counselors, deans, and students, that students would put away addictions and ideologies that are not pleasing to the Word of God. He prayed, and I quote, that the Spirit of God would speak to those on the school board, that God would have them to lead with integrity. He prayed for members of the school board to stand up for what's right, for morals and integrity, that every person under our authority would know that something's different about us. He could not have prayed a more perfect prayer for how I was feeling in that moment. It was almost as if he knew about the challenges that we've experienced over the course of the past 2 weeks. The challenges experienced all throughout this district that frankly go against principles of integrity, against morals and ethical behavior, and against the leadership of this board that I hold so dear. But his prayer was perfect because that's how I believe God works. So as I wrap up my comments this evening, board, I want you to know that I commit to lead with integrity. I commit to hold others accountable when they lack the integrity and ethical conduct and fortitude that jobs working with and for children so desperately require. And while I may not commit to publicly calling out those around us in the district for dissension or anything that's reared its ugly head of late, I will stand up for what's right. I believe it's why voters put me here, and frankly, I believe that's why God put me here. I will lead with integrity. My hope is that our students will also work with integrity. They will understand that their work in school needs to be done with integrity. They need to have discipline and work ethic. All of those things start from this board and this board member, and I value this job and the work that's set before us, and I will always lead with integrity. Before addressing expulsion matters, I wish to acknowledge that board members have received the alternative placement lists for students through February 3rd, 2023. Ms. Martinez-Lopez, are there any parents who've submitted a timely request to speak on their child's disciplinary matter?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have 4 speakers.
Okay, thank you. We will be addressing those off air in just a moment. May I have a motion to approve the expulsion of student JD 23-0113E, JD 23-0122, JD 23-0124E, JD 23-0125, JD 23-0126, JD 23-0133, JD 23-0134, JD 23-0137, JD 23-0138, JD 23-0140, JD 23-0141, JD 23-0142, JD 23-0143, JD 23-0144, JD 23-0145 with educational services through the remainder of the 2022-2023 school year and the entire 2023-2024 school year. May I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Dr. James. Second by Ms. Conrad. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes 5-0. With that, we will go into a brief recess while we are able to have these parents address matters of the board, and we will go into recess at 6:48 p.m. Thank you.